No, City Attorney Aaron's not coming to.
We're completely boundaryless.
We're on our own. That's a dangerous place. Dangerous place.
Say whatever you want.
As always, you have the right to remain silent, but if what you say can and will be used against you.
Not in today's world.
Yeah. I know, he's got us. He's got us.
He's our witness.
Yeah. It's new? No, was that on
Yes,
there?
that's gonna get added to the
Okay.
agenda.
Okay.
Silent anticipation. Okay.
Good evening. Welcome to the Monday, August 19th regular city council meeting for the city of Ellensburg. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and it's my turn. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the clerk call the roll?
Beauchamp. Here. Lilquist.
Here.
Elliott.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Palmer.
Here.
Thompson.
Here.
We move on to proclamations. Is there somebody to read this or?
Good evening, council. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Pam Tuggle Miles, and I am representing a committee that has put together the Overdose Awareness Day celebration this year. And I'm going to read the proclamation. Whereas the city of Ellensburg does affirm and acknowledge the harm and hardship caused by drug overdose. And whereas we recognize the purpose of International Overdose Awareness Day as remembering loved ones lost to overdose and ending the stigma of drug-related deaths. And whereas we resolve to play our part in reducing the toll of overdose in our community, which claimed the lives of nearly 1,700 Washington state residents in the year 2023, with countless more affected forever. And whereas we recognized in this past year, Kittitas County has lost 7 individuals to overdose. And whereas we recognize that first responders in Kittitas County have responded to an increased number of substance use related calls in this past year. And whereas we affirm that the people affected by overdose are our sons and daughters, our mothers and fathers, our brothers and sisters, and deserving of our love, compassion, and support. And whereas more people die from overdose than from gun violence and vehicle accidents combined. And whereas death from overdose is preventable. Whereas there continue to be deaths from stimulant use. And whereas overdose continues to increase both medical and other economic costs, greatly impacting our society. And whereas substance use disorder is a treatable disease and the stigma and shame often are a barrier to seeking help. And now, therefore, the city of Ellensburg does hereby proclaim August 31st, 2024 as International Overdose Awareness Day, which will be honored with an event on August 28th at Hal Holmes Community Center from 1 to 4 p.m. In recognition of International Overdose Awareness Day, the city will honor those lost by lighting up landmarks in purple. And this was signed the 19th day of August, 2024.
Thank you. Okay, we move to awards and recognitions. Item 3A is an Eagle Scout project report from Oliver Taft.
members of the council, mayor, tonight's special. This nice young gentleman approached me several months ago and he asked if the city would help him with his Eagle Scout project. And I, being an Eagle Scout myself, I was overjoyed to help him. So he's got a great story to tell. It's not about me, it's about him. So Oliver, come on up.
Good evening, City Council and Mayor. Good evening, City Council and Mayor. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak to you tonight. So my name is Oliver Taft and I'm a senior at Ellensburg High School. I'm also in Boy Scout Troop 493 and I'm in the process of earning my Eagle Scout rank. Eagle Scout is the highest rank awarded in Boy Scouts, and one of the requirements is to carry out an Eagle Scout project. The city was kind enough to help me with my project, which was applying storm drain markers to storm drains located around town. These markers read, only rain down the storm drain, which helps inform citizens not to dump waste down the drains. So I made a map of what we did here. And on August 6th and 7th, some other scouts and I, we hiked all over town and applied approximately 255 storm drain markers. And so on August 6th, we got to do almost this entire box here, which is in between University Way and Manitoba Avenue, and then in between Main Street and Chestnut. And so that was about 134 markers. And then the next day, August 7th, we completed that box and moved north of University Street. And so we did all of Water Street. And we also hit this neighborhood west of Water Street and this neighborhood north of Central Washington University. And that was about 121 markers. And so in total, we had about 255 storm drain markers. All right, so projects like these are important because contaminated water, stormwater runoff is a major threat to wildlife habitats and clean water in the US. So people often dump fertilizer, oils, and paint down the storm drains. This has severe consequences on the environment, like destroying the habitats of fish and other aquatic species. Because stormwater runs directly into rivers, such as the Yakima, it can play a big role in the health of our local agriculture industry. Not only does it harm the environment, but this pollution can find its way into drinking water as well, which poses a threat to human health. By carrying out this project, the city benefits by helping maintain the health of our ecosystem, as well as the citizens of Ellensburg. It also helps satisfy our NPDES permit compliance for outreach education. I'd like to thank you again for helping me complete this project. In particular, I'd like to thank Mr. Murrow, who helps me organize and carry out the project. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Council, do you have any questions?
Well done, Mr. Taft. Well done.
Just a thank you.
Sincere. This is also an opportunity for members of the audience. If you have any questions or comments about Mr. Taft's cool project. So, how about like a round of applause, Oliver?
I do have to say that we were supposed to have done this in July and it was 108 and 110 out and I wouldn't let him do it. And so we had to reschedule. So it all worked out. Thanks, Oliver.
Thank you. We'll move to approval of the agenda. And just as a reminder, we have a proposed addition, item 11C, which is consideration of a budget item related to the Stan Bassett Youth Center. You should have a copy on the desk. So when we do the agenda, let's do the amended agenda.
I'll move approval of the agenda, amending it to add item 11C, the Stan Bassett Youth Center roof budget
Second.
item.
We have motion second to approve the agenda as amended with item 11C. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye. Opposed? That motion passes. Consent agenda.
I'll move approval of the consent agenda. Second.
Motion second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye. Opposed? That motion passes. Move to item 6A, page 67 in the packet. This is petitions, protests, and communications. This is annual 2023 annual police report. There will be an opportunity for public comment.
Wouldn't take you long to get up here.
He's waving a red card in the back of the thing for you.
Very nervous when he sees me playing with the computer, so.
I don't know where you put it, chief.
Thank you, Drew. Good evening, Council and Mayor. Ken Wade, I'm the Chief of the Ellensburg Police Department. I'm here tonight to talk about the 2023 annual report. And I apologize for the lateness of the year. We had a lot going on in March and April with the change in staffing, and so that had an impact on our ability to put this together. Appreciate the moment of your evening this evening and talking about what's been taking place in the city of Ellensburg in 2023. Beginning of the year, let me get my slides all up to speed here. The introduction of this, the annual report provides an overview of the department, our activities, improvements, challenging, and our staffing, strategic approaches, and the year marks a return to some normalcy in the post-COVID world of policing. We've made continued progress on several programs and projects, which will all reduce crime and improve the quality of life in our community. Key highlights for calls and criminal contact statistics. We handled just over 18,000 calls, which was a decrease of 300 from the previous year. Made approximately 940 criminal contacts, which were 9% fewer than the previous year. Our mental health related referrals remain pretty consistent the previous year. We did have a significant increase, and there's an error in my reporting of a typo. The increase was not 32%, it was 100% increase in juvenile arrests. Improvements noted in crimes involved child victims, some violent crimes, and malicious mischief. I just mentioned earlier, a significant increase in drug-related crimes. In 2023, we saw our first fentanyl-related fatality overdose. We also had 6 other fentanyl overdoses and a meth overdose. Strategic initiatives. We continue to implement the accountability-driven leadership model, utilizing timely data for crime reduction and prevention. We're focusing on individuals, crimes, and locations where crime is occurring through the enhanced data and analytics. And when my second presentation, when we talk about crime, you'll see the significance that we have in that. As a reminder that the analytical position was created and filled in September of 2023. So we didn't get to fully benefit from that. But that was through a partnership with ID Analytics and the Bureau of Justice Assistance. Our crime reduction strategy, we're still observing a downward trend in violent and overall crimes. We're addressing threats for criminals outside of Kittitas County with some new initiatives. Our development of the drone program to assist in locations and apprehension of criminals, funded and supported by the council. And this technology will also enhance our scene security during tactical operations and search and rescue. As an example, we utilized the interior drone earlier this summer with an individual who was inside of his residence refusing to come out. We were able to get a warrant, fly the drone in, and the drone told the subject that he needed to come out, and the guy came out and gave up. We're also exploring new technologies to help with the detection of stolen vehicles, which is a continuing growing problem across this here locally and across the state. Personnel changes. The retirement, Sergeant Brett Koss. Brett retired in June of 2023 after serving 26 years with the PD. We were fortunate to hire 3 new patrol officers. 2 of them we stole from Central Washington University. And I take great pride and have thanked the Chief Berthen Cook several times for the quality of the officers we stole. We passed out applications to several other of his officers. We were fortunate to get Jacob Claybaugh and Michelle Navarro. Both of them have been great assets to the department. The 3rd new patrol officer we picked up, he was new to the profession, Kramer Rickman. He came to us from the private industry in the building. But unfortunately, for family reasons, he has decided to go back to construction. But great individual. We were very excited to have him for the brief period. Additional new hires. We hired Kayla Moore. She came to us again from Central Washington University. And you may recognize her from her work at Weineger's, where she had worked for several years. And then rounding out our hiring for 2023, we hired Dr. Ilian Carr. We didn't steal her from Central, but we did steal her from Yakima Community College. She is the first ever crime and intelligence analyst for the city of Ellensburg for the police department. And we had a promotion of actually 2. Cliff Collier was promoted to sergeant, and Ryan Potter was promoted to corporal during 2023. And we ended the year with 1 patrol officer vacancy. But as you've heard, we now have 2. Employee recognition. I took the opportunity this year to present the awards at the National Night Out so we could share the awards and recognition to the 2 officers with all the participants at that. Detective Ryan Shull was chosen as the Officer of the Year. The receipt of this award is nominated by a vote of the membership. Detective Shull has been a detective for 12 years and worked tirelessly without complaint to investigate crimes, protect our community, and drops whatever he's doing to help others with their cases. And then we also recognize Captain Dan Hansberry, who's now retired. He was selected for the Chiefs Award. Dan was chosen in recognition of his many years of leadership and support to the department, the Special Olympics, CASA, and many other organizations. Response to resistance. You'll see the 13 bulleted points. Those are all mandatory reporting points to the Washington State Attorney General's office. Again, this year, out of the 18,173 calls, we had 2 uses or 2 responses to resistance. That equates to a 0.00016% of the time that we're having contact with individuals that some force was used. And also back to that, well, it's also important to point out that there was nobody injured in any of those. There were 4 instances where officers were assaulted in 2023. One of those instances, one of those assaults, a suspect advanced on an officer with a knife before the subject eventually dropped it. And another suspect advanced on an officer with a rock. There were also 2 reportable incidents where force was used. So we feel very fortunate that nobody's getting hurt in this, and the trend that we're seeing is less violence towards police right now, at least in 2023, and is carrying over into 2024. Complaints. During 2023, the department received 8 complaints, which included 2 response to resistance, 3 job performance and 3 off-duty complaints. Of those 8 complaints, 5 were unfounded and 3 were sustained. One of the job performance complaints alleged bias policing, and that was determined to be unfounded. Unfounded means that it's insufficient evidence to show a violation of policy occurred. We also may hear the word exonerated. And exonerated means the alleged incident did occur, but the actions were within department policy and within the law. And that's oftentimes where we have individuals that complain about or want us to investigate some type of enforcement action that was taken upon them. The court makes the final determination. We take a look to see if there's any policy violations. 4 of the investigations were initiated by the department, meaning that 4 of the 8, half of them did not originate from the public. It originated from internal within the department, brought to our attention, and then I directed the investigation. And you may recall in 2021, we had 16 complaints. In 2022, we had 8 complaints. So the trend is continuing downward. Training. Each year, officers are required to attend a minimum of 24 hours training. And there's state required training that they have to receive every year. There's additional training that they have to receive every other year. So we spend a lot of time training. In 2023, officers averaged 78 hours each. Well, along with the 40-hour annual in-service training, officers traveled to what you see in this photograph is the Hanford Hammer Training Facility for emergency vehicle operations. This is now a required training as part of the pursuit law that took a change this past year. And with the firearms, the benefit of having the range is immeasurable. We also have taken the opportunity and have a contract with another state agency, so they help offset the costs of cleaning and maintenance on our training facility. But it's being utilized by more and more departments and more entities from outside, including the CJTC. Patrol. Patrol is where 21 officers are assigned. The patrol division, when fully staffed, has 21. We currently have 20. We have 4 squads of 5. And during 2023, they handled 16,860 calls for service. They wrote 4,669 reports, conducted 310 traffic stops, 808 welfare checks, handled 799 suspicious circumstance calls, and 798 animal problems. Detectives. The department has 5 detectives who are supervised by a detective sergeant. 3 of them are generalist detectives, means that they investigate all crimes, primarily the most serious of the crimes or crimes that are more complex and may take a lot longer, so they'll free up patrol. And there are also 2 anti-crimes detectives. Our detectives are also have specialized training in technical knowledge and matters involving sensitive information and investigations. And we're part of the Columbia Basin Investigations Team, which is a regionalized investigation team for officer-involved uses of force or complex investigations. And our officers were utilized to assist Grant County Sheriff's Department with the shooting in 2023 at the Gorge. Our 2 anti-crime detectives, primarily responsible for proactive casework involving drug trafficking and other spree-related crimes. And our anti-crimes detectives are also have been assigned to assist with the CBIT team. The backbone of the department, our records staff. The records department is made up of 4 full-time records clerks and a supervisor. And they're the first point of contact for the department. And they will direct you to the appropriate forums, departments, or officers to best assist you. Our records clerks are responsible for data entry, transcription of records, dissemination of confidential information, gathering and reporting statistics, just to name a few of their duties. They also handle public disclosure. Our school resource officer, in 2023, it marks Lucas Anderson's second year as our school resource officer. He's doing a great job. Officer Anderson splits his time between each of the schools, providing security education and is not there for enforcement. We do not use our school resource officer there as a tool to investigate crimes involving kids at the school. It's used to build relationships, and it's used to make sure that there's safe things are going on at home. So, and Officer Anderson's done a great job on that. This is a program, and we work in partnership with the Ellensburg School District. But the school district does not pay for the officer. He is paid by the city. Code enforcement. Code Enforcement Division consists of 2 limited commissioned officers who handle parking enforcement as well as nuisance ordinance throughout the city of Ellensburg. Parking, they had a total of 1,171 hours and issued 975 tickets, 2,647 warnings, and have a 27% enforcement average. So those people that say that they're constantly getting ticketed, we have a very low enforcement percentage. So we also handled 1,023 proactive code violations with 250 reported code complaints. Animal control. This marks the first full year with the animal control or the police department not operating the shelter. It's been a good transition. Can't say it's been a smooth transition in all aspects, but when you're talking about the people that work at the Humane Society are very caring, do a great job with the animals, and so we're very pleased with the services that they're providing. One of the challenges that we're facing too is with animals is we had 27 dog bites and 14 dangerous dog investigations this past year, which is more than we've had in past. And it seems like just about every other one of them wants to have a hearing with me to explain why their animal has done what it's done. Also 163 animal control violations in our parks, freeing Heidi up for more proactive work has allowed her the time to go spend at the different parks and make sure that we're getting around and trying to get the message out. Our reserve program, we currently have 6 reserves, and it's comprised of school district administrators, security officers, and a food delivery driver. Our officers in the reserve program volunteer to their community. They're part-time officers, so they have to go through the same background check as a police officer. And then they're required to take a series of trainings and tests that are proctored, the final exam being proctored by the Criminal Justice Training Commission. And they do it all for free. They don't get paid for any of that. And over the years, reserves have played a very vital role in training future law enforcement officers. I started as a reserve with the Kittitas County Sheriff's Department a few years ago, and so has a lot of the staff. Of the 6 officers, reserve officers we have, they volunteered 1,705 hours in 2023, which included the rodeo and pride parades, Cop on Top, National Night Out, and other community events, as well as riding with patrol officers. And a picture of our last year's National Night Out. Last year's was very successful, and this year's was successful too. Missed some of you and saw some of the others. So we had a good turnout at both. This is by far the largest event that, or last year's was the largest we'd ever had. We're still taking a look to see if this year's, it looks like it's about the same. We served more than 700 burgers, 250 hot dogs during that event. Cop on Top. Last year was Dan's, Captain Hansberry's last Cop on Top. And so as part of that, we created this, the ability to soak a police officer, in this case, soak the police chief. And well, some of you sitting up there at the diocese took advantage of that. So did many of the community. So last year we had a pretty good turnout. We raised over $6,000. Our partnership with Fred Meyer is vitally important, and it gave us the ability to pass out about 150 backpacks and child supplies for school. Shop with the Cop, another very worthwhile community event. It was another success. This past year, we had 53 elementary children from Kittitas County, and they're not limited to Ellensburg. We have students that come as far away as Snoqualmie Pass, and if there was anybody that was wanting in the Kittitas School District, they're included. So it's open to everybody. This is also not an Ellensburg Police Department event. This is an event we partner with all the other emergency service providers in our community, and we have a large contingent of local firefighters and police officers that participate in that. The day starts with going to KBH, where they're provided a nice breakfast, and then there's a drawing for bicycles. And this past year, we were fortunate enough that every child that needed a bicycle was able to get one. We also partnered with Windermere Real Estate this past year, and they provided Christmas meal baskets to include ham and with all of the sides for a Christmas meal for each of the children. Citizens Academy. We had a very prominent individual that attended this last year, Citizens Academy, as she sits over there at the city clerk's table. But this is a program that is dwindling. We're not seeing the participation that we've seen in the past. So it's something that we're looking at, the validity of keeping it up, and we may wind up having it to become every other year or try some other way of garnering interest in it, but it just doesn't provide what it used to provide to the community. And our community, our child safety restraint program, this was something new we started in 2023. We hosted 3 car seat clinics for community members, and they were also available for inspections and questions at the annual National Night Out. In 2023, we did 102 car seat checks. That's child seat were performed by technicians, and 25 car seats were provided to 2 families in need, courtesy of a grant that we got with the Washington State Traffic Safety Commission. This is a valuable program managed by our records clerk, Miss Cammie Dixon Ricard. In addition to Cammie, Christian Aviar, and our most newly appointed inspector is Kayla Moore. They do a great job. They're very passionate about it, and it provides a wonderful service to our community. We often get referrals from the hospital and from other daycares, and that to have people come in contact with us, and we have the ability to, with the Spanish-speaking officers, to do that, make sure that we're covering and providing those services to everybody in need. And in conclusion, the Ellensburg Police Department demonstrated resiliency and adaptability in 2023. We had a large range of calls, improving in several key areas despite facing significant challenges. The department remains committed to enhancing our community safety and quality of life through effective policing, strategic initiatives, and strong workforce. The dedication to data-driven strategies and technology advancements positions the department well to meet our future challenges as we serve our community. And I'm available for any questions you might have.
Council, any questions?
I just have a comment. I felt a little cheated that I didn't get to dunk anybody this year when I went. Yeah, I was
We
kind
can
of
work
looking
out a
forward to it.
special deal. I'll get Captain Weeds here. He can be more than happy to. So.
David?
Thank you, Chief. Excellent presentation. I was curious on the animal city park violations. Is that primarily driven by complaint, or is that?
No, that's proactive enforcement.
Okay.
It drives it.
Okay.
And we'll discuss some more in my next presentation about the increase in the number of those calls.
Okay, thank you. Also, just real quickly, I won't take a lot of time on this, but I just wanted to express my appreciation for the professionalism of EPD. And that I know that comes from the top, and it's that I happened a couple of weeks ago to stumble inadvertently into an ongoing situation that EPD responded to out from my office in an evening. And it was intense. And I was impressed by a couple of things. One was just absolute professionalism, the way the officers handled the situation. And the individual was not in a good place, but there was no wavering as far as measured response. Two was, it was clearly, there was a lot of professional training involved, because I didn't get an exact count, but EPD, Kittitas County Sheriff and CW Police were all there. And, you know, it was resolved, and, you know, as you always hope for those to be, but I realize that doesn't happen by accident. So again, thank you and all the officers who make that happen.
Thank you. And our partnerships are very important to our success and to the community's safety.
Any other questions? There's an opportunity for public comment in the audience. If you want to make a comment, you'll just introduce yourself, state your name, speaking for yourself, and whatever your comment needs to be.
My name is Jack Cassidy, and my statement is, what's the most common crime in Ellensburg City?
We'll have to have Chief Wade answer that.
Okay.
The single most crime category would be theft, and departments, and I'll cover a little bit this in a little bit, but police departments crime reports primarily based on 3 different crime types: property damage or malicious mischief, theft or larceny, and then assaults. And so those are the big 3.
Anybody else in the audience? And anybody online? Okay, we're going to close out item 6A, move to item 6B, which is the 2023 crime report. And again, there will be an opportunity for public comment. Thank you, Pam. I feel like he could have gotten there on his own, Drew. I'm just saying.
Again, counsel, Ken Wade for the Ellensburg Police Department, here to present the 2023 crime report. My previous presentation was more of the administration and the inner workings of the police department. This is this talks to our success or our challenges and what took place in our community in 2023. Again, our mission, vision, and values, they remain the same. We have not changed them. Our strategic goals and motto, again, serving with pride, compassion, and excellence. And the 2023 crime report, this was created to compare crime statistics for the Ellensburg Police Department. And I think it's important to point out that these are just matters handled by Ellensburg Police. So cases that may be investigated by Central Washington University Police, the Sheriff's Department, or other entities, and it's dependent upon where the crime occurs, not who reports it or where they're reporting it from. We utilize the National Incident-Based Reporting System, or NIBRS. The NIBRS for this report. And the reason we use that is it is a national reporting system through the FBI. The definitions and the reporting processes are uniform across the nation. But that being said, it wouldn't be an accurate comparison to compare Ellensburg data with Sunnyside or any other entity. It's primarily just good for our local community. And we also need to point out that NIBRS data is a snapshot in time. Crime statistics and crime data is ever changing. And so some of the data that you will see that may be reflected as an arrest may have been for a crime that occurred in previous years. And it's very difficult, and there's a lot of nuances to try to say this is exactly what happened when. And this report details the calls and criminal activity within the city. You'll also see some non-NIBRS data. That non-NIBRS data is for calendar year 2023, and that information has come from our internal tracking. WASPIC, or the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, reported in their press release on the NIBRS, it's called the Crime in Washington Report, that the population rose slightly, that the number of officers has also raised slightly. And we're seeing some key takeaways. One of the things that's of importance is we've seen that murders have begun to drop. Again, a decrease of 5%. It's still significantly higher than it was in 2020 and 2021. Violent crimes overall decreased by 5%. Vehicle thefts was a 5.4% increase in 22 and continuing a trend of 112% increase since 2019. Hate crimes incidents increased by 6%, 576 of them in the state. Crimes against persons, these crimes saw a slight decrease, 0.6%. Crimes against property decreased by 11%, and crimes against society significantly increased by 22%. Overall, violent crimes and property crimes showed reductions, but there was a noticeable increase in vehicle thefts and crime against society. And then how that compares in Ellensburg for 2023, our population, according to OFM, was 20,914 officers to population was 1 to 1.48. And if you were to look at patrol officers, it was 1 to 1.02. Our officers handled 18,173 calls in 2023, which is a 6% increase compared to the previous year. Patrol officers averaged 865 calls per officer. So each officer handled that as an average. There were 1,337 NIBRS crimes, which is a 10% decrease over 2022. We made 506 Group A crimes related arrests, which is 18 more. And as we get further into the report, I'll be able to show you what we're talking about when we're talking about a NIBRS related crime. Concerning crime categories for 2023, or rape up 87%, juvenile crime arrests up 104%, motor vehicle thefts up 20%, domestic assault offenses remain the same, but they're still substantially higher than we want them. Some areas where we improved, we saw a 30% decrease in aggravated assaults. We saw a 32% reduction in destruction of property. We had one less, which 83% animal cruelty, 8% reduction in theft, 41% reduction in alcohol violations, and a 56% reduction in robbery. With all of that, I'm happy to report that our crime report, or our crime stats show a 63.9 crimes per thousand. This is an 11% decrease from the previous year, 2022. But more importantly, it's also the lowest number that we've had since we've been keeping track of crime statistics in Ellensburg. Here's the NIBRS data. You can see in the upper left corner and down the left column, these are the Group A crimes, your murder, manslaughter, rapes, and so on. And most of these that I've just covered. Then we have Group B crimes, which are more of your societal crimes, checks, curfew, disorderly, DUI, family offenses, and those in the category of all other offenses. It's also important to recognize that there are arrests that we make and criminal contacts that we make that are not included in this. You know, warrant arrests, order violations, and those types of things are not reflected NIBRS data. And you can show the previous 5 years of crime rate per thousand from a high of 2022, actually 2020 of 75.9 down to 63.9 where we're at today. Taking a look at our population versus our clearance, tells another very important story. If you take a look at our total offenses, it's down to 1,337 NIBRS crimes. We cleared 560 of them, and clearance is by an arrest or by exception, and for a 42% clearance rate. When you listen to the experts talk about solving crime and the impact that that has on crime in the community, that's a very important number. This past year, the Washington State Legislature contracted with a company to take a look at the crime in Washington State as a whole to see if it was high because of the remnants of COVID and the social justice push, or if there was some other reason behind it. And in watching that and then reading the reports that came out of that, the city of Ellensburg was identified specifically by name as having the best record for clearance of violent crimes in the state of Washington. It's also used as an example to the legislature that if you hold people accountable, that it will drive your crimes down. So we're very pleased with that and very pleased with the numbers that we're seeing. In the previous 5 years, we've had the lowest offense totals, and that's what we're actually shooting for. It's not the arrest side of this. In the bottom section of it, CJTC also, or OSPIC also tracks officers, how many you have in your department. And so you see we're sitting at 29. It's taken at us in the spring of the year, so there's a lot of fluctuation. So, but again, we've remained pretty consistent with about 29 officers. But included in 29 last year was an officer at the academy for several months. You can still see the downward trend on the right column showing that we're headed in the positive direction. In the last 11 years, we continue to drop. Mental health impacts. We track using mental health referrals, and we are not making a medical determination. What we're basing it upon is our training and experience. We believe an individual may benefit from some assistance from mental health professionals, and so we track those as mental health referrals. And these, it's important to recognize that these numbers that's not individuals, so that's calls. So we've had some individuals, so we've had upwards of 20 referrals on. And then on suicides, our suicidal calls, very happy to see since 2018, it's continued to drop. Suicide attempts has dropped significantly, and we're fortunate that we have a very low suicide death rate, although last year we did have 2. This enforcement data is primarily calendar year, and it's what's tracked by me. Compared to 2022, we had an 8% decrease in criminal enforcements, 11% decrease in males, 3% decrease in females. We saw a 4% increase in calls for service. And a call for service is somebody picked up the phone and called KitCom and they're sending an officer. Self-initiated contact are if the officer observes a crime and handles it. So as you can see, calls for service were up 4%. Self-initiated contacts were down 28%. Unsheltered, we had a 22% increase in criminal contacts, and mental health, 51% decrease. And when we take a look at the different data points that are out there, I recognize that there are hundreds of data points that we could collect. And this collection of data points was developed by me. It's non-scientific. It was done because these were the most questions I was being asked. And so we put this together, or I put this together originally. And you can see in 2023, we had, again, 941 criminal enforcement actions. 638 people were involved. Repeat offenders, we had 141 repeat offenders. And if you look down at the far bottom in the red, you'll see the impact. The repeat offenders, they were 22% of the individuals that we contacted, yet they made up almost 47% of all of the crimes, the criminal contacts that we've had. That's pretty significant. You'll also see under local offenders, we had 41 or 444. Non-local offenders, we had 194. And that's also important to recognize. In 2021, Kittitas, or actually it was non-Washington or Kittitas County residents accounted for 37% of all of our criminal contacts. In 22 and 23, they have accounted for 30%. Traffic violations are dropping, which is good. Mandatory arrests. And again, this is kind of a hodgepodge of, these are crimes that the officers are left to no alternatives. If you have a warrant and it's valid, the officers have to make an arrest. If there's an order in place and it's a valid order, then the officers have to arrest you. And the same thing if it's domestic violence. And so you'll see that we've still up there quite a ways, but it's coming down. Our violent crimes, this was something new that I added to the form this past year. And again, these violent crimes are not utilizing the same violent crime categories that's through NIBRS. These are geared towards assaults and assaultive behaviors. The average age of our violators hasn't changed much. It's 31 years of age. Youngest, although last year in 2022, we had an 11-year-old. This year we had a 12-year-old. The oldest has dropped down to 79. We had a total of 87 juvenile offenses, 26 college students. And I also recognize that when we talk about 26 college students, that's probably the minimum. We don't ask if they are students, but oftentimes they might live on student housing or they identify as a student. So 26 of those 26, 10 of them were alcohol related, 5 of them were DUIs, 3 were other non-traffic. But we did have 1 robbery second arrest from a central student. But overall, they have very minor significance in our overall crime picture, which most people in the community don't believe. But traffic violations, 19%. Mandatory arrests were 36%. Our offender to enforcement to totals, 1 to 1.47. And for our repeat offenders, it's 1 to 3.13. Continuing with our enforcement data, taking a look at the demographics. On there, we found that they're very similar. What we've seen for the last several years that I've been tracking. Whites account for 79% of the crime, Hispanic 11, Black 5, Asian 2, Indigenous 3, and others 1%. So our enforcement by calendar year for offender residency, and although it says the top 15, we had a tie, so I had to choose 16. But as you can see, a large number of our criminal activity comes from individuals that live in King County, Yakima County, fewer this year in Grant County. And what was surprising is how few the out-of-state offenders were. We're usually running significantly higher than 8. So for some reason, it was down quite a bit. Of our top 16 offenders, we had one offender with 12 arrests, one with 10 arrests, 8 with 9 arrests, and 6 with 6 arrests for 130 crimes, which is equivalent to about 15% of all of the crimes that we handled were caused by 16 people. Hate crimes. Although this is a topic of concern for most communities, and specifically, I'm asked about this quite often. And you'll see that the NIBRS definition, that's not the Washington state law, but this is how NIBRS classifies it for our reporting. And again, you'll see that we've had no reported hate crimes in the city of Ellensburg. We had 1 in 21, none in 22, or none in 23. We are aware, however, that there were 2 reported hate crimes in the county in dealing with religious. And then we're also keeping an eye on the activities that are taking place with the recent crime up at Central Washington University, but that's not being handled by us. Offense and arrest totals. Again, this is NIBRS information. This is not the calendar year. You will see again that the decrease 1,337, but countywide, our crimes account for 63, almost 64% of all crimes, NIBRS reported crimes in the county or in the entire county. And if you look at our type A or A and B total arrests, so 726, which is, one fewer than 22. But of significance there is that 77% of all criminal conduct or contacts take place by the Ellensburg Police Department in those arrests. Kittitas County Sheriff's Department has 16. Central didn't report this past year, but they're right around 2 as high as 8%, and Cle Elum is 6.5%. And then again, this is just graphically representing the red line being Ellensburg Police Department. Challenges, we're moving to 24 and beyond. Gang-related activity is increasing dramatically. Juvenile criminal arrests have doubled. I had a note, DCYF was not incarcerating any new offenders, but as of last week, they sent us a letter saying that they are going to begin accepting new juveniles offenders again. Drug-related deaths have increased. Sexual assault crimes are increasing. Increase in drug distribution, and not only is it increasing, but the how drugs have been distributed throughout our community has changed dramatically with fentanyl. And so we're closely working with our federal partners and with Yakima and some other entities to try to get a handle on things. And continue, monitoring our increase in violent crimes. Things that we're watching, and these are 24 watches, suspicious fire trends that we were seeing earlier. We have identified and made a couple of arrests in those, and we still have ongoing investigations in a couple other fires. And then the mental health increase, looking at 24, we're on path to equal or be greater than we were in last year. Last year, for those that were on council, I talked about the precision policing project that I was doing. That when I presented, it wasn't complete. This is the wrap up of that. And as a reminder, in February 23, I sent a letter to a department manager identifying a problem and asking for their assistance. The problem I identified was noise complaints. Noise complaints are usually social gatherings where, parties, drugs, and alcohol and escalate into other crimes. At the completion of 1 year, and that was February to February, we saw a 7% reduction in the total calls and 30% reduction in noise complaints year to year. So we're taking what we learned there and we're working with our analyst and trying to develop strategies for other high density locations to where we can reduce crime through education and information and not have to make arrests. And data sharing, this changed dramatically compared to what we were providing to you guys last year.
We are utilizing Power BI and with the analyst, we're able to come up with more informational, and they look much nicer than my Excel spreadsheets, you know. And I find that hard to believe because I learned on like Excel 95 or something like that. So I want to thank you for your time, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
Council, any questions for Chief Wade?
Chief Wade, thank you for this great presentation, and thank you for sitting down with me a couple months ago and going through Power BI. I was pretty impressed, especially with the addition of your analyst. So I'm very happy for you for the data collection and being able to have that information available to you. I've got 4 quick questions on some of the information that we're going through. This goes back to enforcement data. This is slide 13 and 9. Slide 13 talked about mental health decreasing by 51%. And then on slide 9, the mental health referrals was obviously increasing here. So I just wanted to make sure I interpreted the mental health aspect reduction that you talked about from that reduced from 51% from 22 to 23. What aspect is that associated with? That's on, I'm sorry, slide 11 it was.
One of the things that you will, to separate out, let's see.
That's one more. Right there, yeah.
This is criminal enforcement data. So oftentimes we do not make arrests.
Okay.
We will have calls that involve mental health, individuals in crisis that need mental health. And so those referrals is what I was talking about in the earlier slides. The number of times we're coming across people in crisis.
Understood.
These are instances where criminal enforcement is taking place.
Gotcha.
Apologize, I didn't separate that out.
No, it's just my slow brain trying to catch up. So thank you for that. Second question regards to the NIBRS crime report. I think you mentioned this and I want to clarify. It is inclusive of stats that are from CW's campus, right?
No.
No. Okay.
In earlier years, Central has provided their own NIBRS information.
Okay.
But this past year they didn't. Kittitas Police Department, and they haven't provided theirs for the last several years.
Okay. And then on slide 6, this is the 2023 crime report. The concerning crime categories, I just had a couple of questions associated with those. First, regarding the 87% increase regarding rate. I'm curious, are any of these occurring in areas around the city that are dim lit that could benefit from better public lighting, or is this are these happening in houses or residences or those kinds of things? Is there anything from the city council aspect that could be done with some of those?
We look at all serious crimes for an environmental impact. If there's something that we could help to change to reduce it. Most of and I'm not speaking to all 15 of those.
Sure.
But those are usually residential or hotel related sexual offenses, not outdoor.
Okay. The motor vehicle theft that's up 20%. I'm just curious, is that related to any particular brand or type of vehicle, or are they just going for whatever's out there?
The Washington State Auto Theft Authority provides me a monthly update on the top vehicles being stolen. And for us, it has been anything from the Kias and some Hyundais. Right now, the trend appears more towards Silverado pickups.
I'm glad I drive a Ford.
That will probably be next month. Sure.
Anybody else?
I just had a quick question. So slide 20, data sharing, you don't have to go to it. I was just curious, is that I like it. I know it's not Excel 95, but is that available publicly, or is that part of a closed system in terms of the access for looking through the numbers?
that on the left is a closed system, but we're working with IT to create a public facing dashboard so we can push that out. And it requires some GIS assistance, and we've got a partnership with Yakima, and they're going to help us build the product for it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I think that's a great idea. I think my recollection is that we thought we had cleared a pretty high bar when we had some dots, bigger dots for higher concentrations of crime. So I think we're heading in the right direction. So thank you.
And it's also important to note that that information is updated every morning. So when I come into work, I know exactly where we're at for whatever given time period.
Can you define or give an example of crimes against society? I have that one too.
So the crimes against society are those that are identified by WASPIC, and let me bring it up here. Those are usually your group 3 crimes, bad checks, curfew, which isn't against law here in Ellensburg. Disorderly conduct, DUIs fall into those categories. And keep in mind, those are categorized by FBI analysts in Washington, D.C.
I've got a quick question back on the mental health referrals. I assume that by referrals, it's not a one-to-one for an individual. Somebody could be referred multiple times and they'd count as multiple referrals. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, the data that you see there are individual referrals, not individual people.
Do we have any idea on if the number of individuals is increasing at the same rate or is it steady, but there's just more referrals being generated because of awareness about mental health? Just trying to understand that chart a little bit.
I know when I was tracking the specific calls, there were certain individuals who would have substantially more, and that would fluctuate. And I don't and can't give you a specific on that, but some of the things that influence that is we've had an individual that was on a tear and was having all kinds of crisis, and he was able to get put into a recovery system. And so although he probably was the worst off as far as crisis was in our community, he was given help. So he would only register 5 mental health referrals. We've had others that just kind of bounce along and they're in and out. And we have individuals that are probably, and this is just an estimate, but we've done 17 to 20 referrals to.
Okay.
I just have a quick one. So I was happy to hear that the students account for a very small percentage of what happens in Ellensburg, but would they be considered local or non-local?
We count central students as local.
Okay.
So one more, I hear people say sometimes that the call rate for low-income housing is really high. And is that a perception or truth? Or is it only some of the low-income housing you can't generalize?
Well, I can. Our larger facilities have, it depends a lot upon the density and who is housed there. And so certain locations in our community have more elderly, and some of them may have come from rural areas. So they're not used to having neighbors living above them and below them. And their garden is encroaching on somebody else's garden, those types of calls. So when we look at these locations, we're trying to reduce the pressure, the concern for all of the things, parking complaints and such. So, but there are a couple of places that are, substantially higher. We work with the management companies and we were able to turn a couple of them around. A couple of them, we were experiencing a lot of crime and then a lot of calls out of them, but through working with their management and them working through the process, they were able to get
those things down substantially. And we've got two projects ongoing right now. One involving a large facility and another facility up north, which is primarily college students. And we're doing surveys to find out what their thoughts are on crime. And we're working with some creative responses to drive the overall call volume down. So we look at two things we're trying to reduce. We're trying to reduce the number of crimes and the victimization in our community. But we're also trying to reduce the total number of calls, reduce the need for people feeling that they have to call us because they're afraid to talk to their neighbor about a problem, or they feel that we've become somewhat like the fire department. A cat's in a tree, you call the fire department first, you call the police department second. So we're trying to embolden our community to get back to handling the things that they should be handling.
Got one more. This has to do with the Nyberg's crime report on slide 7 again. Fraud, that was 107 incidents in 2023. Is that like credit card fraud, or what kind of fraud is that?
That fraud is as a catch-all. So it could be credit card fraud. It could be any type of scams. One of the things that we see here in our community with it being a college town, and we'll start seeing them here soon, is, I've got a rental place you can rent. So those come along every year. That's a form of a fraud where I list and rent a place that I've never owned, but you send me a $500 damage deposit. I guarantee you I'll meet you there and give you the keys. So those types of scams.
Thank you.
Any questions from the audience? Online? Okay, we'll move to thank you. Item 6C, Washington Family Clean Energy Credits Program. Again, an opportunity for public comment, page 104 in the agenda packet.
Here he comes. Here he comes. Just made the chief feel good. He didn't.
I had faith in you.
But he didn't have.
Oh, okay, bring it.
Good evening, Council, Mayor Buddy Stanovich, Energy Resources Manager, here to just provide a short informational update on the Washington Families Clean Energy Credits Program. This is a grant distributed by the Department of Commerce, having electric utilities such as ourselves provide $200 bill credits onto customers' account here by September 15th. Some customers will be automatically enrolled based on services they receive, whether it be the utility discount program, LIHEAP funds, whatnot. They'll be automatically enrolled in that program. Other customers can go to this website that is listed here and that we've been sharing out to apply. Some customers are getting reached out to by the vendor from the Department of Commerce, which is called Promise. And those are going out in the form of a text message application and directing folks how to apply for those credits. I just really wanted to come and share and tell you this is going on and that customers may be seeing this. If you get questions, we've been fielding quite a bit internally here. So that's really all I have, and I can answer questions if you have them.
Council, any questions?
Is there a limit on the appropriations that can be handed out with this one-time credit? I'm sorry, that's first sentence, disregard. Sorry, buddy.
No problem.
Well, I'm sorry, is there a limit on the distributions within Ellensburg that can be handed out?
Yeah, so you're right, that the 150 million statewide, Ellensburg got 395,000.
Okay.
And so that's about 1,800
Gotcha. Yeah.
accounts or so.
So just for people who may be watching, to qualify, you just have to have an income less than $149,700.
To automatically qualify, it would be under 72,000. If we do have funds available, we can go up to that 149.
Okay.
7.
And if I got a text message saying fill out this form, I would be very suspicious and probably delete it.
I agree. That's kind of why I came and wanted to share, and this is Department of Commerce's vendor promise. We're just trying to get the word out that you may be getting a text message from them.
And I would offer to read my text message, and it says, important update for Washington residents. Ellensburg Electric Division and the Washington Department of Commerce are offering a one-time $200 credit for eligible electric utility accounts funded by the Washington Climate Commitment Act. And then it provides a link. So it's very simple. It's a very simple process, and people can enter data, and so the email, if you're getting an email or text like this, it's a legitimate email, and I encourage you to follow through.
So if they didn't want to fill it out there, though, they could come in to our utility department and we would facilitate the process that way.
They would have to go to this link that's here. So it's on our website, how to get there.
Okay.
And we could, if someone did come in and ask, we could walk them through how to do it. It's only a few questions. There's only one selection for Ellensburg. We are listed as Ellensburg Electric Division. That's the name Commerce gives us. So if you see that, it would be us.
Quick question.
Yes.
So if I understand correctly, September 15th is the deadline. So if we do not, for the applications, is that
No, that's the deadline for us to put the credits on the account.
eligible? Okay.
So
So what's the cutoff for the application? I guess what I was getting at is we have a finite amount of time. If we don't get enough applications to use the $375,000, it will go back to Olympia, I guess. Is that right? We don't get to keep that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience? Online, no. Thank you. We'll move to item 7, which is citizen comment on non-agenda items. There are no people signed up online, so we are in the audience, and I will get my list here shortly. Ms. Stanley. And historic district signs. So I will read the rules here, sorry. So comments are limited to 3 minutes. Speakers do not identify yourself as a candidate for elective office for or against any ballot measure. Address items that are only that are on matters which concern city business or which council has control. State your name, whether you live in Ellensburg, Kittitas County, or elsewhere, whether you're representing yourself or others, and then the topic.
Okay. Dorothy Stanley, I live at 201 East 9th Avenue. And thank you this evening for hearing me. I'm here for myself. I have lived in the historic railroad addition for 25 years. There are no signs identifying it as such. Grants are available for historic signs. In discussing the signs with Stacy Henderson, the city senior planner, she referred me to Public Works. I told them about the signs. They said that permission would be needed from the city council to install the signs in a right-of-way and maintain them. The signs are made of bronze with a metal post. One sign could be placed at the corner of 9th and North Main, and the other would be at the corner of 10th and Wildcat Way. This encompasses the whole historic district by placing the signs there. And I have a sample of this sign, and it goes with the metal post.
Are you done?
No, she hasn't finished.
Yeah, I'm done. Do you have any questions?
Normally, we don't interact with people on citizen comment and on, so we'll probably put this on a future agenda.
Okay,
Okay, we don't normally take action on things that are brought to us
okay.
on agenda. Okay, thank you.
You will let me know then?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's the only person that had signed up. Is there anybody else in the audience? Anybody online? We don't have anybody online. Awesome. Okay. We will move on to item 9A, which is a resolution 2024-24, which would authorize interfund loan from shop and warehouse fund to arterial street fund. Sounds like a good topic to talk about without the attorney here.
That's
There
right.
will be there will be an opportunity for public comment.
We got the finance director, so.
It's almost like an attorney.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council, Ryan Liskey, Public Works and Utilities Director. This is nothing new. We've done this in the past. I'm here tonight to ask for adoption of a resolution that will allow the shop fund to loan money to the arterial street account. The arterial street account is an account, it's kind of a clearinghouse for transportation projects where sales tax grant money is the primary thing in there. Interdepartmental transfers, things like that. But when we make payments, we have a lot of projects we've done this summer. We've made a lot of large payments. We're in need of some cash. We have we have adequate budget in the account for all the projects. Just the cash flow is lagging because we're waiting on grant reimbursements to come through. So with that, we're asking for an interfund loan as needed to help keep the arterial street fund positive.
Council, any questions of staff? No. Any comments from the public? Okay, do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, move adoption of resolution 2024, authorizing the interfund loan of $2 million from the shop fund to the arterial street fund.
Second.
So a motion second for resolution 2024-24, which authorizes the interfund loan between the shop and warehouse fund to the arterial street fund. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye. Opposed. That motion passes. Thank you. Item 11A, page 119. There will be an opportunity for public comment. This is the second quarter 2024 financial status and investments report. Except for the streets being out of money. Everything's good.
We did a lot of projects this year and a lot of them are grant funded, so we should be getting some significant grant money here soon.
Cruise to the rescue.
No, he's gonna sneak up behind you. It's gonna be weird.
He's on camera.
Oh. Did I do it right, Drew? Okay, good evening, Council, Mayor Elliott, Jerica Pasco, Finance Director for the City of Ellensburg. Beginning on page 121 of your agenda packet are the second quarter 2024 financial status and investment reports for the period ending June 30th of 2024. The second quarter reports were presented to the Finance Committee at the August 7th meeting. Second quarter projections were made as of the current situation on July 23rd of 2024. The projections were made with the hope that there would be a continued slow cooling of inflationary increases and a slight recovery of sales tax due to some additional business reporting and an uptick in construction sales tax. The general fund revenues minus the managerial funds are expected to come in over budget. A majority of this excess of revenue over budget is interest earnings that were not budgeted on our investments. The general fund expenditures are projected to come in below budget as required. The budgeted expenditures reflect all adjustments that were taken to council prior to April 30th of 2024. The current slight projected underspending of the general fund expenditures continues to currently be created with some temporary position vacancies. And a breakdown of the general fund departments is included on table 7 that I'll talk about later. Table 2 shows the year-to-date revenue remitted through the state. Overall, the second quarter revenue distributed through the state for sales tax activity was up 3% compared to second quarter of 2023. It was down 2% at the end of first quarter. So we're seeing some definite recovery there. Also of significance, the city assistance, which is a portion of the state's real estate tax distribution, is up 1% compared to second quarter of 2023, and it was down 11% at the end of first quarter. So it is seeing some significant recovery as well. The regular sales tax is also up 3%, and it was down 3% in first quarter. I'm going to talk about that recovery a little bit more in detail later when I get into the sales tax report. I also wanted to mention that hotel motel tax is also up 13%. It was up 13% first quarter as well. And I think I spoke about at that time that appears to be due to a slow COVID recovery, but it's remained consistent. Table 3 shows all of your governmental fund tax revenues by type. Overall, the governmental fund tax revenue is projected to exceed budget by approximately $473,000 or 2.37%. For the sales tax projections, we used a 2% increase over 2023. When doing that, we looked at monthly trends, seasonal trends, and year-to-date over trends, as well as the different tax classifications. Also, for B&O tax projections, we used a range of 0.93% decrease up to a 10% increase over 2023, depending on the specific utility. Other taxes is projected to see a decrease in excise tax. A majority of that is for leasehold and other excise taxes because the hotel motel tax in there is still holding strong and projected to come in over budget. Table 4 breaks down the difference of budgeted less projected by tax purpose. Overall, the sales tax is projected to come in over budget by around $118,000. However, general retail sales tax, which is the only one that is not restricted that we use for most things, is projected to come in under budget by around $163,500. The 2% increase used for projections still may be overly optimistic, and I advise council and staff to continue to use caution when making decisions around this slight recovery. It's a little bit more of an optimistic projection than what I'm currently comfortable with. And as you can see, these projections were made on June or July 23rd, and a lot has continued to happen since then. Every day it's up and down, and I think the latest predictions are still that the feds are probably going to raise rates by about 25 basis points in September. They've talked about 2, they've talked about 1, but talked about we're in a recession, we're not in a recession. So these are very optimistic, and we're still taking it day by day. Table 5 digs a little bit further into sales tax by activity. It shows the year-to-date sales tax activity compared to the previous 2 years. So overall, the sales tax is up 3.3% compared to second quarter of 2023. However, retail trade had the highest dollar decrease, which is the one that I tend to follow because that's more of the local regular retail sales, with the other categories showing the highest dollar increase. The regular retail sales tax revenue did have an overall 4.4% overall decrease under the same period last year, and that was up compared to a 4.8% decrease at the end of first quarter. So it still trended up as well, which is why I used the 2%. However, many of these category increases were due to additional business reporting and maybe one-off purchases that will not continue. A lot of them appeared to be new business reporting for businesses that aren't located here necessarily. And so trying to figure out if those were just one-off purchases or maybe they are purchases that those businesses are now reporting like they're supposed to for point of delivery. Not really sure, so not confident that those classes are going to stay up. Again, we'll continue to monitor these closely, and they don't include the 0.03% for criminal justice or the public transit. And these revenues are for sales from November of 2023 through April of 2024. Table 6 shows the year-to-date utility tax activity. Overall, it shows compared to 2023, the first 6 months, a 0.24% decrease. The city implemented, as you know, a new utility billing system in mid-December of 2023, and the finance department is still working diligently with our software vendor to try to continue to work through issues that remain. This created some delayed billing and additional reporting needs, and based on the timing of this implementation and the revision of some of those utility bills, there's still additional corrections and adjustments for our first and second quarter utility taxes. Back on page 3, let me other way. You might have noticed that for B&O taxes, I'm expecting us to come in over budget by about 14%, which seems strange when you're looking at table 6, where a lot of those are under budget or under less than last year, saw a decrease. And a lot of this is due to our current reporting and the issues that I just talked about with our utility billing. When I did some looking into it, there's around 5 reasons for this. We've got some adjustments to continue to do before next quarter. Part of those are that in this first 6 months, there's actually only 5 months of utility tax in there because we were working with the vendor to get the reports that we need and adjustments that need to be done. So there's only 5 months for 2024, whereas there's 6 for 2023. Also, many of the customer payments did not happen in December of 2023, and they have delayed their payments, have been made the first half of 2024, which increased some of the 2024 taxable revenues. There was rate increases across the board too, as well, effective January 1st of 2024. And then probably one of the most consequential impacts is the amount of water PIFs that have been paid. So there was around 277,000 more of PIFs paid in the first half of 2024 than in 2023. And I think that is due to those building code changes. This accounts for about more than 50% of the increase in water. It looks like there was a big building code change. And so there was a rush to get those turned in and paid for. So all of those different things made it a little bit hard to project, and we're continuing to work on that, but we should have better numbers for you by the end of third quarter. Table 7 shows your revenues and expenditures for the general fund. And again, it doesn't include the managerial fund. The column on the far right is your budgeted less projected. So at the top there, we're projecting to come in over budget in revenues by around $755,000. And again, majority of this is under the miscellaneous category, which means it's the interest earned on our investments, coming in a lot higher than what we originally budgeted. Expenditures, overall, we're expecting to come in under budget by around 1.6 million. And I had spoke about before, a lot of that is due to some temporary staff vacancies, as well as a bunch of other underspending. So our original 2024 budget, we were expected to use around 1.3 million of fund balance. And right now with our projections, we should come in about 1 million of fund balance ahead. However, because these numbers were done as of the end of second quarter and we've had a lot happen this summer, I wanted to mention too that there's some significant expenditures in Parks and Recreation that were not included in this projection. They've had some significant overtime this summer, as well as some of those fires and the costs that you'll start seeing for some of those fires that were set at Irene Reinhardt Park and that some responses that we had there. Table 8 shows our current bonded debt. There really isn't much change here from first quarter other than on 3 bonds. Most of our bonds, we just make interest only payments in June, and then we make principal and interest payments in November. However, 3 of the bonds, the 2017 Public Safety Building Bond, the telecom utility bond, as well as our gas bond, we did make principal payments in June as well. So those are slightly less overall. Our balance at the end of June for our general obligation bonds is around 7.7 million, and for our revenue bonds is around 23.6 million. The table on the next page shows that the city brought in around 4.6 million more than it spent so far in 2024. However, 3.9 million of that excess of revenue over expenses is from the utilities and internal service funds. The general fund, when I include the managerial funds, which are those funds in blue that you see here, the general fund actually saw a net loss of 1.96 or almost 2 million. Of this $2 million loss, though, it included 1.29 million of state and local fiscal recovery funds that we received in previous years that we're starting to spend now, which would bring it down to about $750,000 that we've actually of a loss that we've seen in general fund. Let's see. Then we have our investment reports. The city had at the end of June, we had around 87.1 million in investments. Of that, around 64.7 million were with the local government investment pool, which still has a pretty significant interest rate. I think at the end of second quarter, it was the yield, it was still earning around 5.4%. Yield curve is still inverted, like I've talked about previously. As of June, or for the month of June, we'd earned around 313,000. So far at the end of June, we've earned around 1.9 million in interest on our investments, and projected right now to hit approximately 3.6 million by year end. Again, if the feds do a rate drop rates by around 25 basis points in September, I'm projecting a couple basis point decreases from now until the end of the year. So we could see more than that if those rates don't drop. I'm also trying to continue to reinvest as some of our investments mature into longer term investments that may have a slightly smaller yield than the LGIP, but because I can do those in 1 to 5 years. So if the LGIP rates drop like they've done in the past, we still have solid investments to keep us through. So I did reinvest another 2 million in investments in June for 5 years. That has around a 4.55% yield. Staff recommends council accept the second quarter reports as presented, and I'm happy to answer any questions that I can.
Council, questions for staff?
Yes. First of all, thank you for all the information. It's much appreciated. Going back to page 9, this is table 9, the recovery funds that you mentioned there. Is there a sunset clause associated with those, or are those going to be available for the next couple of fiscal years, or when's the end of that?
We're in the process by 2026. They have to all be spent. They all have to be declared by December of 2024, but we have already declared the spending on all those funds.
All right. So the recovery fund is obviously helping us offset some of our issues. So if we get out to 2026, it sounds like from a budget standpoint, we'll need to account for those recovery funds not being available.
Yeah, so those were kind of spent on one-time projects. So
Okay.
a lot of what we've budgeted the
One-time
recovery fund for was Unity Park, some projects in sewer, Anderson Road. Council had set some clear back when we heard what we were going to get, what projects we wanted to use on, and knowing that they were one-time funds, we elected to use them on one-time projects instead of operating expenses.
Thank you. And then on table 7, under that miscellaneous category, you kind of talked about it a little bit, where we're at budgeted the 332 versus the 929 and that projection. Could you go a little bit more in detail about that delta that we have experienced and are kind of projecting out?
So when we originally did our 2024 budget, and we do a 2-year budget, so that was a couple years ago, interest rates were next to nothing even then. And so our budget for our interest earned was next to nothing. As we saw interest go up, I tend to not do supplemental adjustments for the revenues to increase those budgeted, just because so much of that isn't guaranteed. And when we have excess like this, we're trying to use those towards things, knowing that we have, it's kind of that balancing act. Our investments earnings go up, but also our debt rates may go up, or percentages there, as well as our sales tax may go down. So part of that is on purpose that we haven't continued to increase the budget for those investments.
Gotcha. Okay. Next one that I have was associated with table 4. This goes back to your explanation associated with the retail sales, specifically the regular 0.85 that's showing under budget by, I'm sorry, public safety showing over budget at 182. Can you go a little bit of detail of what that encompasses as far as the public safety?
So that's the 0.3%, 0.3% of sales tax that we get that's supposed to be used for criminal justice. It has a different revenue calculation and stream than what our regular retail sales does, because it is countywide and it's split then between the county and the city based on a couple different things. And it's used for additional officers, additional funds for additional officers. I think when it went out to the constituents or the public for voting for it, it was pretty specific, and it wasn't supposed to cover what our current costs were for public safety, but for additional new officers, new animal control, and that. So we have a separate fund that we track it in, a separate special revenue fund 130 that you'll hear it's referred to as the criminal justice fund that we use the sales tax for.
So, so I just want to understand a little bit more, and forgive me as I'm trying to understand it. So from public safety, as far as that revenue that's generated, is that from tickets or arrests?
No, that's sales tax. It's part of what you pay in your
sales tax.
in your
Okay.
sales tax when you go to the grocery store or anything.
Understood. Okay. All right. And I think I have one more question on table 2, which had to do with, actually, we covered it with public safety. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good. Quick question. On the bond repayment, the principal repayment, you mentioned that's unusual. Was there something that prompted that might? affect things in the
No,
future?
like with the public safety building, we opted to have a steady payment plan, basically try to pay the same amount each year. And we tried to make it similar to paying off the city hall loan that we had and keep that steady. And so the easiest way for us to make that whole like that was to do a principal payment in June as well.
Okay. So it doesn't affect any other bonds. It's as opportunities.
We did it basically.
Okay. Great.
Trying to work backwards. We knew what we wanted to pay in debt and.
Any other questions? Anybody in the audience? Online? Nope, we're good. Thank you. Item 11B, this is the Flock license plate reader system.
We have a motion request.
Please.
I was just gonna decree it.
I think he just did.
Okay, let's get a motion. Sorry.
I'll move to authorize the approval of no, that's the wrong
No,
one.
it's just approve the second quarter financial status and investment reports.
Yeah.
I'll second.
So we have a motion second to approve the second quarter 2024 financial status and investment reports. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye opposed. That motion passes. Now to 11B, flock license plate reader system purchase, and there will be an opportunity for public comment. This is page 134 in the packet. And we will vote this time. Minute behind you.
Steps in tonight.
Which one? I don't see it. That's where.
Evening, council. Operations Captain Jim Weed from the Ellensburg Police Department. Back to talk to you all about Flock again tonight. Just a brief overview about what the Flock system is that the police department is looking for a vote on tonight. Flock Safety is connected network of license plate reading cameras. There's a software system associated with these cameras that will automate alerts to patrol officers in the car for criminal incidents. This technology makes officers more efficient at detecting and locating vehicles and drivers involved in criminal matters. It's important to understand this is not for red light cameras or speeding or traffic enforcement. These are only cameras that are set up on a software system to give us alerts about stolen vehicles, vehicles involved in criminal activity, or missing persons, things of that nature. We've been watching this technology, the chief and I, for a number of years, has been in use in Yakima. And over that period of time, they've had good success with it. They have several cameras around their jurisdiction. The first year that they had it in use, they had about 596 stolen cars recovered, arrested 133 wanted individuals, and located 33 missing persons in that year one. We've had local success with this program. Also, as we talked about before during the study session, July 4th, we had a shooting incident on West University Way, and officers responded to the area of shots fired, and they used the surveillance video at the location to establish a license plate for an offending vehicle that was responsible for that incident. Through some relationships we have at Yakima Police Department, they put that plate into the Flock system on our behalf. And about 3 hours later, we were advised by the Kennewick Police Department that that vehicle that we were looking for involved in that shooting had hit a Flock camera in their city. That alert ultimately led to our ability to arrest that person, recover that firearm used in the crime, and as well as other firearms that were related. There was a motel room involved and some other ancillary crimes as well. Other things that the camera system's been used for over the time that it's been in existence. An agency in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma used the system to track down 2 kidnappers and return a woman to her family. Missing persons who are entered into the national database or Flock, such as Amber Alerts, Silver Alerts, or missing and endangered people. If they're associated with a vehicle, will be triggered, will trigger a law enforcement response to the area. So just to be clear, there is 2 functions for the system. One, it will automatically query license plates against the NCIC database, which is a national crime reporting database. So if your vehicle has been stolen, you tell us what the plate is, we enter it into NCIC, and then if a police officer sees it across the country, runs that plate, he'll be alerted to the fact that it's been stolen. That's one way. The other way is that we have a vehicle of interest, say perhaps in a domestic violence assault that occurred here in town. We're looking for a suspect. We would enter that system into the Flock software. It would get searched. Potentially the vehicle would hit on a Flock camera. We would be able to locate them and perhaps it would be someone we'd take into custody, or perhaps it'd be just an investigatory stop and we'd find out what may have happened with the incident. So in our city, we use traffic cameras around the city. We have for a number of years. They provided pivotal footage in other cases for us. It led to recovery of some good evidence. We've used it successfully in a homicide incident here several years ago. The real difference between that system and this system is that the ALPR system automatically queries those databases of the plates that go through. So giving us those alerts and sending officers in a timely fashion, whereas a video system does not do that. We have to pour through that footage and try to find what we're looking for. Some questions came up after the last presentation about retention of information. And so just wanted to hit on that. The Flock system has a 30-day hard delete. This means that all information held in the system is deleted and not recoverable after that time unless we've downloaded it for investigative purposes. So anything that is in the system that we have saved because it's footage relevant to an incident will not be deleted, and we'll use that for evidence for court or what have you. Anything that we've not downloaded will just be erased off the system, and there'll be no data left behind. It's not recoverable. Yes, there was a question about false positives. That is something that does occur. That is a part of life in law enforcement currently, and it will not likely change. There are no perfect systems out there for us. And for really the entirety of my career, the false positive problem has been one that we have to work through with our dispatchers. It's one of the main functions that we have those folks for, call takers for 911, but also to help us work through hits on the screen that they've received. We run plates over the radio or whatnot. They give us the information back. Transcription errors, entry errors, or just errors by dispatch reading it back can always result in false positives. It's just a fact of life for us that we have always dealt with, and we have ways that we mitigate risk in dealing with those sorts of situations. The other question that was asked was why Flock? There are lots of other ALPR vendors out there. The technology is essentially ubiquitous, so equipment is not that different. The primary and distinct difference with Flock is the network capacity. As I said, we've watched this evolve for a number of years, and Flock system gives us the ability to access camera networks in Yakima, Kennewick, Moses Lake, and multiple other jurisdictions across Washington. But the primary thing to know about it is that Yakima, Kennewick, Moses Lake, these are the cities where we have quite a bit of criminal crossover. Obviously, in the incident that we just talked about, we've located one of our folks in Kennewick, and we've used Yakima's ALPR system to our advantage a couple times in other investigations as well. So that's really the best advantage for us with the Flock system. Transparency is everyone's concern, and that's the other part of why we have kind of selected Flock, is that they understand that people want to know what it's being used for and where the information is going and whatnot. So they do have already built in a transparency portal. If you query the Yakima Police Department's portal, you'll be able to see what they used it for during every month of the calendar year. Several years are listed there. The number of stolen plates, the number of stolen vehicles, the number of wanted persons, all those things are listed out there for everyone to see. And also, we do have the capacity audit. So one thing to know about law enforcement, all of our systems contain sensitive information. Our Spillman system that we use on a daily basis, NCIC, all these different databases we have access to. So on an ongoing basis, we just finished an audit with Access, and they were in the department to check on how that would, on our audit that we do every 3 years. Other systems are every year. And so it's important for us to be able to look back at the way things have been used over the prior year for all of our information systems that we have. And that would be no different for Flock. And that is an important component of what that system offers, is the capacity for us to look back. The network effect, since approximately 70 other agencies in Washington are using this platform, we get that advantage across the state. I had a conversation with Moses Lake Police Chief Dave Sands. Moses Lake's a city most like ours. We do business with them on a frequent basis. And he was very excited about their program. They've had it for about 18 months. And he advised their hit and run collision solvability went much higher, which was something that I hadn't really given a thought to with regard to more minor stuff that happens around the city. But folks are victimized by hit and runs in our city on a pretty frequent basis, parking lots and whatnot. So that was the interesting fact that he pointed out. They also solved homicides and a bank robbery within the first year of having the system up. If you go to the Yakima PD portal page, you'll see what looks like this page here. You click on the month for the reports. And like I said, there's other years represented as well, but it will give you that information that I talked about, what they have used it for over that period of time. Is there anything I didn't cover or that there are still lingering questions for folks about?
Questions?
One quick clarification on the 30-day hard delete. I think I know the answer, but when you say information that's downloaded for investigative purposes, it means it's like the plate is still in the system, right? Because if you could have somebody that's wanted over multiple months and you still want to be able to find them, is that the case where you can like flag it and then it stays in the system, allowed to be used beyond 30 days?
Right. So anything we would enter would stay in beyond 30 days. The plates that are captured on an ongoing basis.
Yeah.
So at the end of 30 days, anything that was picked up by the cameras is gone.
Okay.
But anything that we enter would still be a viable query as long as we didn't remove it or it wasn't, someone didn't locate. It's called a locate. When someone were to find that vehicle, whatever, they would locate it with us and we'd remove it.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Comments from the audience? Online? Council?
I move for authorization for the city manager to sign the master service agreement with the Flock system and approve budget adjustments.
Second.
We have a motion second to authorize the city manager to sign the master services agreements with Flock Safety and to approve the budget adjustments. Comments? Discussion?
If the motion maker is not going to. I did go to Yakima's and I was impressed with the number of arrests that the system assisted with, and the percentage decrease in stolen, stolen vehicles was very significant. So I think it's not just what the Flock salesperson was saying. I think we have real evidence that there are real crimes being solved in communities that are nearby to us. I do have privacy concerns, and it would be around the Open Public Records Act and what we would or would not. And I was hoping the attorney would be here to answer some of that, but I think that we may need to lobby or get AWC to lobby for us for possibly some, I guess, tighten up what we would have to release for a records request for this kind of information. Well, I talked to Captain Weed, sorry, earlier today, and I think that was my kind of only remaining concern. But I think it is worth investing in.
And I guess I get that. the information that they're recording and flagging is information that is literally publicly accessible. If you go stand on a street corner, you can do all the recording you want to, and nobody can stop you. So I don't view this as an invasion of privacy. I think this is an effective use of technology, and it improves the efficiency of the police department. So,
I was going to add on the public record request scenario, as indicated in the report, something like 70 Washington cities are currently using technology. So I assume that the public records request issues, if they do present, there are a lot of communities, I guess, that have experience with this. So when we look at that, we could probably find through AWC or other sources, some examples of how that's handled, I would think.
And we can rethink if it gets abused.
Yeah, and my thought would be if there has been some historical abuse, then it would be documented, and I don't know that, so.
Yeah, I think this is too effective tool not to implement. We just had Chief Wade talk through a lot of crime statistics. And the ones that gravitated to the top of my mind are the things associated with gang activity and fentanyl coming through the area and whatnot. And the last thing that I want this city to be is a gap where you have this network where they're able to track things, and then all of a sudden, essentially create a harbor city that doesn't have this technology.
Dark hole.
A dark hole. We don't need that here. So we need to connect the net so these guys can do their job and stop this activity from coming here and finding a harboring place in Ellensburg. So yeah.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I guess I did a huge deep dive on this from a number of different angles. Overall, I think it's a worthwhile technology to invest in. I think we should watch it. I think any new technology and its application should be watched and understood by this council. One request that I would have is I like looking at stuff like this a lot closer to the ground than the 10,000-foot level. When it's time to train an officer on how to use this system effectively, is that something that I could be a fly on the wall on and observe, so that when people ask me questions, and I can say responsibly, yeah, the policies are there, the training's there. You don't have to worry about this. In fact, you're going to be a little bit safer, which is the goal. So if that's just a request separate from my vote, of course. Great.
Okay, if we're ready to vote, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye. Opposed. That motion passes. We move to item 11C, which is separate from your packet.
Thank you, Mayor Elliott and Council. You have before you, and I appreciate the last minute addition. We didn't want to add this to the consent calendar because folks didn't have an opportunity to look at this. This relates to the Stan Bassett Youth Center roofing project. This is a project that was funded through actually the 2017 facilities bond that you just looked at in the report. It was in the 2023 line item, but did not get moved to 2024. We were not able to accomplish the project last year. And so our request tonight is to approve a carry forward from 2023 to 2024 for those funds for the roofing project.
Council, any questions? There is an opportunity for public comment. Audience online. He's not paying attention to me anymore. Who cares? No public comment? Okay. We need a motion.
I move for approval of budget carry forward from 23 to 24 for the Stan Bassett Youth Center re-roofing project.
Second.
Motion second to approve the budget carry forward 2023 to 2024 for the Youth Center re-roofing project. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye. Opposed. That motion passes. Item 12A, Manager's Report. No public comment.
Great. Thank you, Mayor and Council. In addition to what is in your packet, which I'll highlight a few elements, you have before you a letter of support for Central Washington University's funding for a combined heat and power cogen plant. This is a request made by the university for us to support their request to the state. And we're asking for the mayor's approval of the council for the mayor's signature on the letter.
Motion to authorize mayor to sign letter supporting CW's cogen project.
Need a second.
Second.
Motion second to authorize the mayor's signature on the letter of support for CW's cogen project. Any discussion?
Yeah, just a couple of comments. One, I'm going to abstain from voting because obviously I work for the university. But just a clarification on the caveat associated with this request. So Central Washington is primarily focused on backup power as a resiliency tactic for the university. This is one element of it. Another element is 6 megawatts of traditional diesel / natural gas generators to be able to back up the power of campus. We came across this as an option as an institution simply because as we looked at the long-term usage of backup power, we were trying to find a means of what's going to be best for us in our support with the city. So the support with the city being that if we get into a condition where there are some power constraints at the city, the university would have the ability to turn on a cogen and essentially alleviate 6 megawatts of electrical power from the grid to help out the city. That's available on the cogen, not so much on the diesel generator aspect. You can run generators and everything, but there's actually a substantial cost associated with that. But there's also a substantial cost with the natural gas that's utilized with the cogen. The benefit of the cogen facility is that it has the ability to provide steam heat, which was critical for heating our residence halls in the dead of winter, plus the benefit of generating 6 megawatts of electricity. So that's why we put this request before the city. So that is what it's for. So we'll put this in a capital request. It is possible that legislators will reject it. And if so, then we will go a different means and methods about approaching resiliency for the university. So with that, I'll abstain from voting.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye opposed. That motion passes.
Excellent. Just a few things to highlight in the report. A reminder that our 2025 grant application programs are closing for application at the end of August. So Friday, August 30th. A lot of information online. And if you go to the ellensburgwa.gov/grants, you'll find links to all of those and the total amount available for those.
So, excuse me, do we need to appoint a subcommittee to review those?
Yeah.
You will need to appoint a subcommittee to review those. We could do that tonight, or we can do that at the next meeting.
I was going to mention that because last couple of years, Councilmember Goodloe, Councilmember Wynn and I served in that. Councilmember Wynn is no longer on the council. So at the very least, but then I think anyone could join the fund. So yeah, I think that's going to be necessary.
Whenever the mayor would like.
We will do that on the 3rd, and whoever doesn't show up.
Oh, what the heck?
Sarah and I.
So if you are interested, I would recommend talking to the mayor. So we have a list of folks who, if you're not going to be available, I know we're missing a couple folks that meeting. One addition, we are also, we put out a notice. We have located a site for the cold weather shelter for this upcoming season. The county has stepped up and we appreciate the accommodation at Western Village. And so we're trying to work with Hope Source. They were the responsive bidder for the operations. And so working through the details, the county has received money from the Consolidated Grant Program through the state this last legislative session, which should be able to fund the operations for the facility. We're hoping this is just a one-time location and we can look for other options for the future. And again, we will be Hope Source. We're encouraging them to use volunteers in the model, and they're working on creating some resources and some connections so people can actually sign up and work through the training and to help out at the shelter services. They also, relating to homelessness, the county is working on their, on updating their 5-year plan. There's a survey out. We have the links in your packet. They are online. I think they're looking at keeping that open, maybe through September. We're trying to encourage that. And we're trying to get to sort of a record number of responses. And so, there's a QR code on the flyers in your packet, so you can follow those. It's also available in Spanish as well. Tomorrow is our Wednesday, I guess. I'm sorry. Wednesday from 11:30 to 1 is your employee appreciation lunch. And so you all are invited for a lovely hot dog, or excuse me, hamburger or cheeseburger at the operations center, and just an opportunity to have lunch with staff and share your appreciation in person. And let's see here. And a reminder, Pam Tuggle Miles talked about it tonight. Our City Hall, EPD, and the library will be lighted in purple, August 26th through 31st. For the overdose awareness month. So, Buddy talked tonight about the utility customers, and I appreciate Councilmember Lilquist. If you do not have text, or you do not like text, you can actually go to the Washington, it's wacleanenergycredits.com website, and there you can find the links to register. You will need your utility account number in order to connect it to your account. And so again, this is a fast moving program. So if folks can take time as soon as possible to register or follow the link, you have a better chance. Again, this is just a one-time $200 credit that will just show up on your bill. And that's all I have for tonight.
Is that just a residential? I mean, if a business doesn't, if it's a very small business and it doesn't meet
believe
the
it's
minimum?
just residential.
Okay.
Any questions of the city manager? Okay, we'll start off with council member reports, and we'll start off with Councilmember Sarah.
All right, so I sat in for Rich on the developmental disabilities meeting this last week, and they are making great progress on their strategic plan, getting that all updated, and they did actually some fun interactive stuff that was great. Library did not have a meeting. KitCom was mostly executive session stuff, so I don't have a lot to report there. The lodging tax advisory applications are now open for those for special events and projects. So if you have anything like that, you need to get your application in. I think it's by September 30th. 20th. Okay. And then, so that committee will be heating up in September. There'll be a lot going on after that. Josh, did you make Parks and Rec? Did they have a meeting?
No quorum, so it didn't have one.
Okay.
You didn't miss anything.
All right. So then I was a first timer to both the National Night Out and the Cop on Top these last couple of weeks, and they were both incredible events. I'm sorry that I have not partaken in them before, because I really had a good time. And like I said, I was a little disappointed that I didn't get to dunk somebody. Yeah, but it was all good. I got a great hot dogs and hamburgers, and I ate my way through it, the whole thing. So it was fabulous. That's it.
Councilmember Nancy.
I attended the Yakima Basin Fish and Wildlife Recovery Board annual meeting, which included a field trip in the Natchez drainage, which was kind of weird. We up enough in the Natchez to be in Kittitas County. Which someone pointed out to me, but I wouldn't have known. The CW Sustainability Council is looking at applying for an EPA Communities Grant. And there was kind of a brainstorming session on that. And I suggested we just finish the Palouse to Cascades Trail, all the reconnection route. So we'll see if that moves forward. I attended a LEF meeting, the pension. Sign the papers to for medical claims. The Airport Advisory Committee is working on their business park plan. The Utility Advisory Committee, we talked about the gas safety awards that our crew received, and we're very proud of. And I got a lot more detail on the HERE grants, which have to be spent by June of 25. So that's also a very fast track. But if anyone wants, is in the market for a new furnace, oven, hot water heater, you should look into it. Because again, the cutoff is 150% of area median income. So it's like for 150,000 people making about $150,000 or less, you would be eligible for rebates on these things. I guess my question for Dorothy regarding the historic signs was whether the Landmarks and Design Commission had talked about that project, and she sits on that, and so I wasn't sure why she's coming straight to us. So
We'll have staff follow up with that item and circle back with you all.
Okay, thanks.
David?
Just kind of a close to things. Finance, we got the details from Jerica tonight, as usual, highly detailed. Arts Commission, and I was able to dip in and out of the Planning Commission because I got double booked on an Arts Commission subcommittee. And because the Planning Commission barely made their quorum, they didn't get started on time. So they made quorum and I left, went next door. So the Arts Commission, we set up a subcommittee to evaluate, to put out a request for qualification statement of interest for artists for the Unity Park installation. And Kelly Vandenberg's just done a terrific job in coordinating that. It's just impressive to watch. I'd say the request was very successful. There were 14 artist submittals. This isn't proposals, it's just expressing interest, showing examples of their work, that kind of thing. And there were 14 submittals. More than half came from artists from Ellensburg, Hess County. In the subcommittee, it was very difficult because I think we saw great things in every one of the artists or the potential. But we were able to narrow it to the top 3, and those 3 have already been informed and invited to the next level of competition, which will be a more detailed proposal. So it's exciting. And that's just sort of, you could think of it as the capstone on Unity Park.
So is it 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional?
It's still
either.
Open. I think it's open. I think it's intentionally open because the idea was to give the artist an opportunity to work with the space and not dictate in either location within the park or medium. There's some criteria on durability and weather outside, that sort of thing. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting thing. There's a wide range of ideas or artists, sort of everything from sculptures to murals to everything else. It's pretty cool. So yeah, stay tuned. That should be coming up. We should have some exciting things in the month of September to work through. And then I have PTAC tomorrow, and that's it.
Okay, Affordable Housing Commission met on the 7th. We had the Kittitas County Housing Authority come in and give us a great discussion regarding limited liability partnerships and how they execute a lot of affordable housing within the county, and their partnerships with Yakima Housing Authority, and then just kind of the tax credit opportunities for the housing that we have within our county. We still have a major wait list associated with our single units. So it's up to 5 years, 2 bedrooms up to 1 year, and 3 bedrooms up to 6 months. So that's something that Affordable Housing will continue to go forward and try to solve with a lot of these proposals and being able to identify somebody to execute these types of projects. met with solid waste, Kittitas County Solid Waste. They've received bids on the new transfer station location. Unfortunately, the pricing on that came in a bit high. So right now, base bid is kind of about the extent of what they would be able to afford, which is just the main facility that actually takes care of the disposal, very similar to what we have now, but some of the ancillary offices and things like that, we're going to have to do in phases, essentially, if we're going to execute this. So unfortunately, the big climate is not as what we were hoping for. And then my law and justice meeting will be coming up. So no additional updates there. And that's it.
Can I ask what the schedule for the solid waste facility, when do they hope to have that online?
Oh, man, you got me with the question that I left in my note packet. I do not remember. I want to say it's 27-ish or 26. Yeah, 26. All right. So
I think she's just making that up.
It's 26.
That depends on how
yeah.
building.
I was
goes.
going to ask a question. Is there any feeling that the ability to fund the other portions or the other pieces would affect our ability to close the current site out and redevelop that?
That is still being evaluated. We're not sure if we're going to have to work in 2 site locations or what, and those kinds of the details. So that's part of what happens next. But as it stands right now, the all-inclusive bid for that project was over budget. And so we're really trying to figure out how to execute that project.
Cool. Yeah, so had city finance, which we saw the report this evening. Jerick always does a great job with those. The Landmarks Commission is back to meeting with the new members. I do not remember this coming up in one that I was in, but I can certainly follow up with Stacy since she knows about it and see where that's at for council. Parks didn't meet. We've got a couple of open positions, and so there was a quorum issue. So we did not meet there. And then was also signing papers on the left board. So that was the 4 engagements these last couple of weeks.
Okay, I missed the developmental disabilities meeting because I was in Dallas, and just kind of as an FYI in the background, we're trying to take on, if you guys have noticed, your insurance rates going up significantly, and in many states, you're having insurance companies back out of these states.
Florida.
A lot of it's being driven by wildfire. Some of it's being driven by earthquake and climate change issues, but we're going to take on the insurance industry as it relates to wildland. So try to get some pathways. Irene Reinhardt, me. Apparently I got to become an insurance expert for fire chiefs. Yeah. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Irene Reinhardt, I did talk to the Parks Director earlier this week about a potential plan to partner with DNR and plant some non-cottonwood trees in the burn scars so that we have non-cottonwood trees and burn scars in our parks. Quaking aspen would be really good from a fire perspective. EMS meeting went well. We are changing out our medical program director after 33 years. That'll happen mid next year. Centrifuge meeting, that process still seems to be moving sort of in the right direction. I will not be able to attend COG on Wednesday if anybody wants to go in my place. They are going to be talking about some 0.9 funds being used for some emergency services evaluation, but it's basically going to get shelved, and I don't know what the rest of the agenda is. I will need to get an excused absence for the 9/16 meeting because I will be out of state.
So moved.
Second.
So motion and second for me to have an excused absence on 9/16. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. And then on the 9/3, we've also got the county auditor scheduled in for the meeting to talk about election security and process and allow people to ask questions. So if you know people who have questions about that, that'd be a good opportunity to sort of check in with the auditor as we move towards an election that appears to be a little bit contentious.
Will there be a study session before the meeting or part of the meeting?
No, that's not part of the study session.
Yeah, it's just a special item at the council meeting.
Yeah. And remember, that's a Tuesday
Tuesday.
meeting. Okay. We're